All right, and we're back with the program. Once again, it's Gerald coming right back at you here on the Pop Culture Cosmos. You know what? It is a defining week for The Walking Dead. I got a little bird that told me ahead of time that there was going to be a big announcement when it comes to the Walking Dead comic series. I got a little bit of lead time on it, and sure enough, the next day, the Walking Dead comic series this past week announced that with issue 193 would be ending its famous comic book series that the whole Walking Dead universe derives from. A very interesting and somewhat shocking turn, as a lot of TWD fans out there were caught off guard by it. But someone who wasn't caught off is that little bird that told me that advanced word ahead of time. It is, well, I guess you could best say she's the curator of two awesome TWD fan sites on Facebook. It's the Walking Dead fan base and Talking the Dead 18 plus. You got to catch both those fan groups today on Facebook if you're really into the Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, and also as well the Walking Dead comic book series. Daphne, it's always great to have you a part of the show, and please give us an update on what's going on with the death or the ending of the Walking Dead comic book series.
Oh God, as you probably realize, the TWD, the Walking Dead universe was actually pretty shook up this week. It was announced, it was rumored about 2 weeks ago that Robert Kirkman had decided to end the comics with the upcoming issue that was just released on the 7th, not the 7th, I'm sorry, the 5th, comic 193. It was a shock. It's still a very big shock. A lot of people are in disbelief. A lot of people think that he's just pulling our legs, but I can tell you without a doubt that the comics are actually over. There will be no further Walking Dead comics, which is surprising because for those who read the comics, you know that Rick Grimes was killed off in comic 192. And that was a very, I'll say, surprising death. I mean, it was rumored that Kirkman was bound to kill off Rick eventually, but we didn't see it coming 25 comics after Andrea was killed off, because Andrea was killed off in 168, and then in 24, and then Rick Grimes was killed off by the leader's son of the Commonwealth. Pamela Martin was actually the leader of the Commonwealth, and her teenage son Sebastian killed him in comic 192, and then Carl actually put Walker Rick down in the same comic. So it was kind of surprising that after that happened, that it ended suddenly. I mean, it came out of nowhere. Nobody saw this coming. I mean, it ended appropriately with the way he summed up The Walking Dead. It's been leaning towards that ideal or that realization that the walkers were not the threat, it's human nature itself. He ended it up nicely, but nobody expected to see it happen so suddenly after Rick Grimes was killed off in the comics. One of the things that was interesting was that the way he ended it, I mean, for those briefly quick summation of what happened after Rick Grimes was killed, Sebastian was locked up like Negan in a cell. His mother had been disposed of prior to Rick getting killed off. That was the trigger that made the son kill Rick. So she was no longer the leader of the Commonwealth. There was a 10 to 15 year time jump in which Carl is a grown man now. He married Sophia, who survived the whole comic series, which is surprising because, as everybody knows, she died in season 2 of the show. So he married her. They had a child, and they named her Andrea. And basically, it ended with him telling the story of his father, Rick Grimes. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between with him going to trial for killing one of Herschel pet walkers. Herschel being Herschel Reed, Glenn and Maggie's son, and there was also Michonne becoming a judge and having to decide Carl's fate, which she just pretty much released him because as things had changed in the universe, like I said, it was a 10 or 15-year time jump, so therefore walkers were no longer the threat. They had dwindled down to, I'll say, a manageable population in which people were not threatened by them anymore. And Herschel had a little sideshow with walkers, and one ended up on Carl's property, so he killed it. And he was actually brought to, I'm not going to say trial, but there was a hearing as to what to do with Carl because he did this. They had outlawed pretty much in, I think that was the Commonwealth, the killing of walkers. I don't know why, but pretty much it ended up that Michonne freed him without charging him. So the surviving characters in the comics actually it ended on a positive note, but it still has that ominous feeling that society still had not become what it was, which could be taken as good or bad because the way society was when the zombie apocalypse started was pretty bad to begin with. So, but they're still rebuilding. They were still rebuilding. They were still trying to rebuild a society that was somewhat of what it used to be. But it was kind of weird to have to read the ending of the story and realize that it was over.
Well, it is.
So, as a result of all that, go ahead.
Oh, well, it is over for the series, and that's going to be a big question now. Is where does The Walking Dead go from here? Because you have also as well, Denai Guerrera also is leaving the show at some point in time in the near future. You have talk about Fear the Walking Dead and its ratings going a little bit here, a little bit there. And the series itself is in question as far as its longevity. You still have another Walking Dead series that's supposedly on the way coming in 2020. And of course, you have the main series, The Walking Dead, also going on, possibly maybe through, like we've talked before, maybe one, maybe two more seasons at most. But with the end of the Walking Dead comic series, what does that do as a whole to the comic book, to the Walking Dead universe?
It's a big hit to the universe. I'm going to be honest. I always try to be positive about the longevity of the show, but as I have stated in previous conversations, I feel that the main show itself, the flagship show, The Walking Dead, as we know it, that's been on for going into 10 seasons, is pretty much towards its end game. I mean, The Walking Dead itself as a show always leaned on the comics for its main storylines, with the exception of season 4, which was pretty much an original. I'll say out of all the seasons, that was pretty much an original season that was not particularly taking from the comic series. There was It was a big different storyline after the ending of the governor's storyline in season 4. So, having said that, since the show leaned so much on the comics for its source material, I am I'm holding out hope that it can last 2 more seasons, get to season 12 and end it. They can do some creative remixing of the storylines and end it like the comics ended. I hope they go that route, but I don't see it going past season 12 now that the comics ended. I mean, because right now we're at the point with season 10 starting in October, and they're filming it right now, where this is the big whisperer war that's going to happen. I mean, if you looked at the end of the finale of season 9, as bad as it was, there was one important thing that happened in the finale was when they went past the Pike's heads was no longer there, but the Pikes were still there. When they went past the Pikes, they crossed the territory in which Alpha warned them not to cross. So that's going to start the Whisperer War. I see that happening throughout season 10. We might get some of the Commonwealth storyline, but that's pretty much up in the air now that it's pretty possible that Lauren Cohan won't be returning as Maggie. I know the last time we talked, ABC had announced that they canceled her show Whiskey Cavalier, but now it's been giving a second breath of life, and it will be returning in some shape or form. So her commitments are now jangled up, and Angela Kane even mentioned that she won't be returning to full-time status on The Walking Dead, so she may be used sparingly in season 10. I mean, they still have to address in season 9 what happened between her and Michonne, where they weren't speaking, because that's never been explained. It's just we know there was a conflict, but what caused the conflict? So now it's kind of like they can remix the ending of The Walking Dead somewhat. I mean, one of the ideas that's floating around is that because now that Judith has taken over pretty much Carl's role, that Daryl will die in the last season. He will be the one that gets killed by the Commonwealth leader's son, and she has to put him down, which means they would have to bring in a love interest for Judith for the 15, 20-year time leap that's going to happen when the show ends. Since Denai is leaving, there will be no Michonne, so Carol could actually take on her role as she has been doing in the comics. And then, one of the things that I didn't address yet was that in the comics, Maggie actually became president of the New World, so to speak. So, I mean, out of the remaining characters that are on The Walking Dead, it could be possible that be given to Aaron because he's still around. Delving from the comics a little bit, speaking of how The Walking Dead could end up, the reason why those scenarios was given is because the rumor mill is rampant right now with season 10 deaths. And unfortunately, season 10, we're going to see a lot of no familiar characters leave the show, besides Denai. There are rumors going around that Ezekiel will die. There's rumors going around that Eugene will die. There are rumors going around that Gabriel will die. So a lot of the characters that we have known since, I'll say now, because the only two main characters from the first season that are still alive and on the show. Now, we still have Morgan and Fear, but on the main show, we only have Daryl and Carol. So, having said that, we have no other characters left from, I'll say, season 4, because that's when Rosita, Abraham, and Eugene were introduced. So it seems like now they're getting rid of a lot of the characters from season 4 that were introduced, and now we're going to be left with pretty much, I'll say, unfamiliar characters that they really haven't created a story arc for, which was a lot of the problems in the last 2 seasons. I'll say with the Jesus character, that's why he left, because he was around for 3 seasons and they really didn't do anything with him. So now it's kind of a wait and see game with the future of The Walking Dead, is that now that we've lost so many of the main characters, we've lost Rick, Carl got killed off, Michonne is leaving. What is AMC going to do as far as keeping, I'll say, keeping it going for at least 2 to 3 more seasons with the remaining characters they have. They don't have main characters. Daryl never existed. Carol was dead in the comics for a very long time, so they have no comic characters from the beginning that survived to the end. So right now it's a little bit of wait and see. People are trying to keep a positive upbeat, but the general feeling is that now with this sudden end to the comics, that it's only a matter of time before the flagship show ends. Yes, they have the spin-offs coming. They started filming the second spinoff that's going to come out in 2020 in Richmond, Virginia. They just started filming. Fear the Walking Dead. Uh, I'm going to be honest. I have watched Fear the Walking Dead since it first came out, but it's time to give it a mercy killing. This season has been the most disappointing season since it aired because it's like there's no cohesion to the story. Storylines, it's like every week it's a different episode and they're not joining together. It's not working. So they might as well end it. Maybe they are going to end it. Maybe they're going to, after, I don't know who's going to survive season 5 of Fear the Walking Dead. Maybe sending Dwight to the show is going to be the catalyst that moves whoever survives this season to The Walking Dead. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm thinking that Fear is going to end really soon. I think this may be the last season for me because it just didn't work out. I mean, they made it, in my opinion, giving the present day and time of what Texas is, they made it too much of old time wild west, and it's not working. Not in the modern day and age. Now, they have this new spinoff coming with a group of young survivors. I'm hoping that they've taken it from the perspective of children that were born during the ZA and not children that were actually around, or they could do it that way too with children that survived the ZA. We'll have to see what happens. But for right now, the biggest thing is the news that the comics ended. There is speculation as to there probably are other reasons why the comics ended. The lawsuits that are about to go to trial is the main whispering in the background right now. But I mean, right now it's just people are still in shock. People are still in disbelief. I guess this is going to go on just like when Carl when Carl got killed off on the show. It went on for pretty much a year. Nobody believed he was dead because they didn't see him die. So we'll have to wait and see. Did Kirkman pull a fast one? I don't believe it. I think he really was set in ending the comics because at the end of the comics, he always puts out, they call them letter hacks. It's an open letter to all the readers of the comics, and he basically explained why he decided to end the comics, and pretty much he ran out of steam. He wanted to end it. He wanted it to end it 4 or 6 years ago, but he decided to keep going, and he just felt that he didn't have any more to give as far as the comics. I mean, civilization pretty much restored itself. Nature, how should I say, won out in the end, and he felt that if he tried to continue, his dream was to go 300 comics. Well, he kind of thought that if he pushed the envelope too far, people would lose interest. So he decided that this was his swan song. Like I said, it's pretty surprising considering that everybody was looking for the end game with Paul taking over in the comics and being the next, I'll say, Rick Grimes, but it did in a way, but it didn't because you won't see any more other than when Carl had to put down his father. He was a teenager to Carl being an adult. Like I said, it was a 15, 20-year time jump in the last comic. So you won't get to see or read about those times in between. We actually do get to hear Paul talk about his dad before the time jump, about how he missed him and how he could have did something different, but that's all we're going to see. And that's pretty sad because I would have liked to see, and I guess a lot of readers would like to see, how Paul eventually resolved within himself between having to put his father down and grow up in the world as it was, without his father, who had been so integral to him throughout the comics. But we won't get to see that. So I'm
But
sorry.
there is still a lot going on when it comes to the world of The Walking Dead, and a lot of questions are abound. And to get the answers updated virtually daily on the questions that are everybody's asking when it comes to The Walking Dead, you got to follow the awesome fan pages on Facebook for Talking the Dead 18 plus, and also as well the huge The Walking Dead fan base. Follow either one of these groups on Facebook and you'll get the latest news and information on The Walking Dead. Also keeping track with us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos as Daphne takes time to go ahead and stop by with us and tell us what's going on with the universe known as The Walking Dead, as it sees the ending of a iconic comic book series, and questions are bound for the future of The Walking Dead. Daphne, it's always great talking to you, my friend. And again, I know you got a lot of things planned going on still for the Walking Dead universe when it comes to Talking the Dead 18 plus and the Walking Dead fan base, with all the groups that you start there, with all the chat groups that you do, and also as well the watching the movies that you the watching of the movies that you get. I saw that the other day where you're showing movies, where you're interacting with everybody. So it's a great time to be a part of the Walking Dead fan base and Talking the Dead 18 plus.
Yeah, we're actually during the downtime we started actually yesterday doing the zombie genre movies, George A. Romero movies. We did Night of the Living Dead last night. Next week we're going to do the original Dawn of the Dead. So we're trying to keep the group going during the downtime. I mean, now that information is starting to come out on season 10, you'll see it in the groups. You'll see not only the rumors, but actual information about season 10. There hasn't been too much. I think they just started filming 2 weeks ago. The last thing I heard is that they're actually not filming in sequence because they're trying to wrap up Denai Guerrero's time on the show to accommodate her filming schedule. So they're kind of filming out of sequence. But as I get the tidbits coming in, I will definitely share them here. I will definitely post them in the group so everybody can hear what's going on for season 10 of The Walking Dead. Before I go, the last thing to mention is that the new trailer for season 10 should be out in 2 weeks. San Diego Comic-Con is about to happen. And that's when they released the trailer for The Walking Dead. It was announced that the cast from Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead will both be present. So be on the lookout. As soon as the trailer is released, I will post it in the groups and everybody can get a first look of what's coming up in season 10.
That's awesome indeed. Daphne, thanks so much again, as always, to updating us on what's going on with The Walking Dead. And it's always great to have you part of the Pop Culture Cosmos.